Hey, it's Lynn, and today I'm coming at you with a book review on Luster by Raven Leilani, a debut novel published in 2020 that earned a remarkable amount of critical attention for a first book, winning the Kirkus Prize, the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize, and landing on what felt like every best of list for that year. And so my interest was piqued. It has been having a resurgence in the bookish world, so I figured I'd share my thoughts on it on the internet. So let's get into it. Edie is a 23-year-old African American woman living in New York City in the way that a lot of people her age are. Barely. She shares a rundown apartment in Bushwick, clocks in and out of a numbing admin job at a publishing house, and drifts through a series of romantic entanglements that have less to do with desire than with the need to feel something, or to feel wanted, which is not quite the same thing. She is also a painter, though that ambition has been quietly shelved, living in the margins of her life like a thing she is not yet sure that she deserves. Then she meets Eric, white, middle aged, a suburban archivist in New York, Jersey, whose wife Rebecca has agreed, with conditions, to an open marriage. Their first date is at a theme park, which says something, and what follows is the kind of relationship built more on mutual unraveling than on any real understanding between two people. The affair between them escalates until circumstances force a rupture. Edie loses her job, her apartment, and finds herself with nowhere to go. What happens next is the novel's most unexpected turn. It is not Eric who invites her to stay, but Rebecca. And with that, the book stops being a story about an extramarital affair and becomes something far stranger and more interesting. Four people living under one roof, each fractured in their own particular way, each working out what they owe the others and what they are owed in return. The household also includes Akila, Eric and Rebecca's adopted 12-year-old African American daughter, who turns out to be one of the most quietly significant relationships that Edie forms in the entire novel. Leilani is not building toward a conventional plot resolution so much as she is excavating, digging into Edie's past through vignettes and memory, uncovering the accumulation of experiences that have made her someone who has learned to become whoever the person in front of her needs to be. Through each relationship in this strange provisional household, the novel maps race, class, loneliness, and the particular harm that people do to each other when they are too frightened or too self absorbed to be honest. The ending does not resolve cleanly, and that, I think, is entirely the point. What I want to start with, because it is a thing I keep coming back to over and over again, is Edie as a character study. Leilani writes her with a kind of unflinching, almost surgical clarity. Edie understands herself with devastating precision, can articulate exactly why she makes the choices that she makes, and yet she makes them anyway. She was labeled the office slut early in her career, and rather than resist it, she inhabits the role as though the only available form of agency is to own the story that other people have written for her. Her mother's eating disorder lives in her body as inherited behavior. The skipped meals before dates, the red lipstick worn not for aesthetics but as a barrier against eating. This is a woman whose sense of self has been quietly colonized by other people's perceptions for so long that she has almost no idea what her own would look like. She is not easy to root for, and Leilani does not ask you to root for her either. She asks you to see her, which is a harder and more valuable yet vulnerable thing. The surrounding characters are built with equal deliberateness. Eric presents as the thoughtful, progressive, self-aware man. And the more time you spend with him, the more you see the insecurity and selfishness seeping through that careful exterior that he built himself. He constructed the open marriage as a solution to his own restlessness and hides behind it whenever accountability arrives at the door. Rebecca is the novel's most quietly riveting figure. genuinely ambitious, neither sympathetic nor villainous, operating from motives that Edie and the reader can never fully decode. She extends something real to Edie and then reclaims it without explanation. Whether that impulse comes from generosity, control, guilt, or some knotted combination of all three, Leilani never tells you. And that refusal is truly one of the book's genuine strengths. And then there is Akila, 12 years old, sharp edged and self possessed, the most emotionally clear eyed person in the household. And the bond that forms between her and Edie is reluctant on both sides and quietly devastating. Edie is the only African American woman Akila has in her life, and neither of them fully chose that, and yet it becomes one of the most honest relationships in the book. I also want to say something about the prose itself because Leilani's writing is genuinely exceptional, dense and kinetic, moving between wry observational precision and something almost lyrical, sometimes inside the same sentence. She writes race and class not as themes to be addressed, but as textures woven into the fabric of how Edie moves through the world. And the effect is writing that never feels like a lesson. The pacing of Leilani's sentences, the way she builds and releases tension within a paragraph, all of it becomes something you feel rather than just read. But I want to be honest about what made this novel hard for me to read because it was hard in ways that went beyond the content being difficult. The accumulation of trauma in this novel creates a sustained, almost airless weight that I found genuinely suffocating at times, and I respect the ambition behind it. Leilani is not interested in making any of this palatable, and there is real integrity in that. But there were moments where it felt like the novel was trying to hold everything at once. Every injustice, every wound, and the effect tipped from immersion into overwhelm. Relentlessness, past a certain threshold, in my opinion, can start to work against the reader rather than with them. The novel's texture becomes claustrophobic in ways that I think genuinely can lose a reader, not because the subject matter is too much, but because the structural choice to stay so close to Edie's inner world for so long without relief creates a kind of stasis. Luster is a book I found both necessary and genuinely difficult to sit with, and I mean both of those things without contradiction. Raven Leilani is an extraordinary writer. Her characters are alive in ways that outlast the final page, and her attention to the inner world of a young African American woman navigating impossible circumstances is something extremely rare in contemporary literary fiction. But it is a novel that asks a great deal without always offering catharsis in return, and its difficulty is not always in the service of revelation. And so I'm giving this novel 3 out of 5 stars, a rating that reflects a worthwhile, important reading experience that I also found at times genuinely hard to stay inside. And so that leads me to you. Have you read this book yet, or are you planning to? I'd love to know your thoughts, so leave them down in the comment section below so that we can interact. As always, thank you so much for watching. You are awesome, stay awesome, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!